Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something super exciting.
Oh, yeah.
The EB2-NIW visa category.
All right.
Now this is a really cool path to getting a green card here in the United States.
Yeah.
And the best part?
What is it?
You don't need an employer to sponsor you.
That's pretty awesome.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So if you're someone,
Yeah.
with a PhD, or maybe you're a professional in a certain field,
Right.
or even if you just have exceptional abilities, this could be like your golden ticket to living in the U.S. permanently.
It's a pretty unique pathway for sure, because it lets people whose work really benefits the U.S.,
Right.
they can apply for that green card without having to go through all that employer sponsorship stuff.
Yeah, you're basically saying like, hey, U.S., look at me.
Yeah.
My work is so valuable to your country.
Yeah.
Just let me stay. Okay.
Exactly.
It's like you're cutting through all the red tape.
And you're just appealing straight to the government based on your own,
Right.
credentials.
Like, I'm awesome.
Exactly.
Look at me.
That's it.
Begin with this whole EB2-NIW thing.
Well, first, you got to understand what it even stands for, right?
Okay.
It's employment-based, second preference, national interest waiver. It's a bit of a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
But basically, it boils down to a way for people with advanced degrees
Okay.
or exceptional ability
Okay.
to kind of bypass the whole labor certification process.
So that advanced degree part I kind of get.
Yeah.
But what does exceptional ability actually mean?
Right.
Does it mean you're just like really good at your job?
It's a little more than just being good, right?
Okay.
Exceptional ability means you've kind of reached this level of expertise that's like way higher than what's normal in your field.
Okay.
Think like national or international recognition, awards that you might have won,
Okay.
publications, anything that really sets you apart from
everyone else.
Yeah, your peers. Exactly.
So I guess even if you don't have like a PhD, you can still qualify if you can prove you have
You got it.
this exceptional ability through all the things you've done and achieved.
Exactly. And this is where documentation becomes really crucial.
Okay.
You really got to build a strong case that shows your expertise, how impactful your work has been.
Right.
And if you're kind of feeling overwhelmed at the thought of gathering all this evidence,
Sure.
greencardselfpetition.com actually has this DIY packet that you could check out.
Okay.
Could be a lifesaver. It really gives you checklists, templates, even guidance
Okay, great.
to help you organize all those documents and make sure you're not missing anything super important.
That's super helpful. I can imagine this whole process would be pretty daunting,
Absolutely.
especially if you're doing it on your own.
It can be, for sure.
So one of the trickier parts, it seems, is this whole National Interest Waiver part. So it's not enough to just have an advanced degree
Right.
or exceptional ability. You also need to prove to the government
Yeah.
that your work is so important to the U.S. that they should basically just forget about you having a job offer.
It's kind of a big deal, right?
It is a big deal.
So let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about that. How do you actually prove that your work's in the national interest?
Well,
Like, what are we even talking about here?
there are three main parts, okay,
Yeah.
to the National Interest Waiver.
Yeah.
First, your work is going to have like
Yeah.
substantial merit and national importance. So it needs to benefit the U.S. in these key areas,
Okay.
like STEM fields, healthcare, business, education, even the arts.
So it's not just about being good at what you do.
Yep.
It's about how your work actually helps the United States in some way.
You got it.
So what's the second part then?
Second one is about being well-positioned to advance your field.
Okay.
So USCIS, they want to see that you're not just competent, but
Right.
that you're actually on track to make a real impact in your area,
Right. Like you're
Yeah.
not just going to sit back and relax. You're going to keep pushing forward.
Keep pushing, keep going.
Yeah.
And this is where, publications, patents, leadership roles, recognition from your peers,
Okay.
that all comes into play.
Right. So you're not just like resting on your laurels.
Exactly.
You're still out there doing it.
doing the thing.
Yeah.
And this is actually where greencardselfpetition.com has this awesome knowledge bot
Tell you about this.
available 24/7, answers any question you have about the process.
Oh, wow.
Even helps you figure out how to show your potential for future contributions.
That's fantastic.
That's pretty neat.
So, okay, we've got substantial merit and national importance.
Yeah.
We've got being well-positioned to advance your field.
Uh-huh.
What's the third one?
All right. Third one is all about convincing USCIS that it's better for them to just waive
Okay.
That job offer and the whole labor certification thing, you got to show them your work is so important and so unique that making you go through all that hiring stuff would actually hurt the national interest.
So you're basically saying my work is too good
It's too good.
for all that.
Exactly. Cut to the chase.
Okay. That's a pretty bold statement to make.
It is. It is.
So what kind of evidence would you even use to back that up?
Well, this is where you really have to build a strong case, right?
Yeah.
You might want to highlight how urgent your work is, the potential impact it could have on the U.S. economy,
Right.
or even national security.
Right.
The fact that there might not be any U.S. workers who have your specific skills.
Right.
Or maybe your work's already benefiting the U.S. in some really obvious way.
So it's really about showing them that you're not just filling some empty spot.
Right.
You're bringing something new and innovative
You got it.
that's going to push the U.S. forward.
Exactly. And remember, each of those three parts, those three prongs, got to be backed up with solid evidence.
Right.
Think testimonials from experts in your field, media coverage that highlights how important your work is, even data showing the impact of all your contributions.
So this national interest waiver, it really seems like you need to be strategic. You're not just showing what you've done. You're connecting it to how it's going to help the U.S.
Absolutely. And it can feel a little overwhelming, I know.
Right.
But greencardselfpetition.com has a ton of resources that can help you navigate this whole thing. Their DIY packet, it even includes sample petition letters and guidance on how to put together your argument so they're really effective.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about those two main things you need for the EB2-NIW.
Right.
You need to have that advanced degree or that exceptional ability.
Yes.
And you've got to meet all the criteria for that national interest waiver.
You got it.
Now what?
Well, once you've figured out that you meet the basic requirements and you've got all your evidence together, the next step is getting that I-140 petition ready.
Right.
This is the official document, that you send to USCIS to officially ask for that national interest waiver.
So the I-140 petition, that's like the heart of your application.
That's it.
We're going to dive into that a little bit more.
We are.
But first, we got to take a quick break.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back.
It really is like the heart of it all, yeah.
So let's break it down.
Okay.
What are the pieces of this I-140 petition?
Well, you've got the form I-140 itself.
Right, the official from...
The official one from USCIS, yep. But the real kind of meat of it is the petition letter.
Okay.
This is where you get to tell your story,
Right.
You highlight your achievements, and you really got to connect them to the national interest in a way that's clear and persuasive.
So the petition letter is where you really get to make your case.
That's it.
What kind of information needs to go in there?
Think of it like a persuasive essay.
Okay. Yeah.
Strong opening that grabs their attention.
Right.
Clear thesis statement laying out your argument. And then the supporting paragraphs where you provide evidence and really elaborate on your points. You'll want to summarize your qualifications, talk about what you've contributed to your field, and then explain how all of that lines up with that national interest criteria we were talking about earlier.
So it's like a balance.
Yeah.
You're showing off what you've done, but you're also connecting it to the bigger picture.
Exactly. And that's where greencardselfpetition.com can really help you out.
Okay.
Their DIY packet actually has sample petition letters, gives you guidance on how to structure your arguments.
Okay.
So you make sure you hit all the key points without, overwhelming the reader.
That makes sense. So it's not just like a brain dump of all your accomplishments.
Nope. Got to be strategic.
It has to be organized and targeted.
That's it.
Okay, so we've got the form, the I-140.
Yep.
We've got the petition letter.
Uh-huh.
What else needs to go in this package?
Well, of course you need all that supporting evidence we talked about earlier.
Personal documents, your passport, your CV, the basics, educational credentials,
diplomas and all that.
Degrees, certificates, evidence of your impact and all those contributions you've made.
Right.
And then those super important letters of recommendation.
Yes, those are key.
From experts in your field.
They really are. They really back up.
Yeah, it's that validation,
Yeah, it's like...
They're saying, yeah, this person's legit.
Right. I agree. They're awesome.
Exactly.
You should definitely give them a green card.
For sure.
So, and even with those, it seems like the DIY packet has some guidance on that too.
It does. It's got great guidance on what should be in those letters, how to approach potential recommenders, what you should ask them to focus on. It's all there.
So they've really thought of everything to make this whole thing
try to
a little smoother.
Yeah, as smooth as we can.
So you've got all these pieces, the form, the letter, the evidence.
Yep.
Then what? Then you pay the fees,
Of course, Uncle Sam's got to get his cut.
Got to keep the lights on, right?
Exactly.
And then you send that whole I-140 petition package off to USCIS.
And then the waiting begins.
And then the waiting game. Nail-biting time.
I know. I bet that's super nerve-wracking.
It can be.
Is there any way to, speed it up?
There is, actually. USCIS offers something called premium processing.
Okay.
It's an extra fee, but it basically guarantees you a response within 15 calendar days.
So if you're on a tight timeline?
It can be a lifesaver.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So let's say everything goes great. They approve your I-140.
Hooray.
What happens then?
Big celebration.
Huge celebration.
Then what happens next really depends on whether you're already here in the U.S. or if you're outside the country.
Okay.
If you're already here, you'll usually file for what's called adjustment of status, which lets you basically switch from a non-immigrant to a lawful permanent resident without having to leave.
Makes sense. So you're already here. You just kind of adjust.
You just adjust, yeah.
What if you're not here, though?
If you're outside the U.S., when that petition gets approved, then you'll usually go through consular processing.
Okay.
Which means you're applying for an immigrant visa at a U.S. consulate or embassy in your home country.
Got it. So 2 different paths.
2 paths, same destination.
Same outcome.
You get that green card.
You get the green card. That's the important part.
That's the goal, right.
Exactly.
And greencardselfpetition.com, they've got detailed guidance on both of those.
Oh, good.
Adjustment of status, consular processing. They give you checklists, timelines, helpful tips for navigating all those different stages.
They really are like a one-stop shop for this whole thing.
They try to be, yeah.
That's great.
It's a lot of information all in one place.
So let's shift gears for a minute and talk about some of the challenges, maybe some pitfalls that people might run into. During this whole EB2-NIW thing, what are some common mistakes or things people just don't understand?
One of the biggest stumbling blocks I see is people just not really getting the criteria for the National Interest Waiver.
Right. It's not just about being good at your job.
It's not just about a fancy CV.
Yeah.
It's about showing how your work helps the United States in a way that's so unique. They've got to waive those usual rules.
So you really have to understand those 3 prongs.
You got to know those prongs.
And then tailor your application to hit those points.
That's it.
With good evidence.
Evidence is key.
Okay, what's another pitfall?
Another common one, people forget to give concrete evidence to back up what they're saying.
Right. It's not enough to just say...
Can't just say, my work is groundbreaking.
I'm awesome.
I'm the best. Yeah. Got to back it up with proof.
Publications, patents, all those things.
Awards, testimonials, data showing the impact. Yeah.
It's about showing, not just telling.
Yeah.
Okay, so you really need to paint that picture.
Paint the picture.
Of what you've done and how valuable you are.
That's it.
So the more specific you are,
the better.
The better.
Right. Absolutely. More detail, the stronger your case is going to be.
Okay, so this whole thing, it can be really complex.
It can.
And I'm sure a lot of people listening are feeling kind of overwhelmed.
I bet.
Where do I even begin?
It's a lot to take in.
What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about doing this EB2-NIW thing, but they're feeling a little intimidated?
First of all, don't panic.
Okay. Good advice.
Deep breaths. It's a complex process, but it's totally doable if you approach it the right way and you use the right resources.
Okay, so what are some of those resources?
Well, I'd say start by getting familiar with the USCIS guidelines.
Okay.
Read some success stories from other people who've gotten their EB2-NIW.
Okay, so you can see how it's done.
See how they did it, get some inspiration. And, of course, check out greencardselfpetition.com.
Of course.
Their DIY packet, the knowledge bot we talked about.
Yeah.
And their newsletter. Those are all incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
They can really guide you through the whole process.
So it's really like a support system.
Like a buddy system for your green card journey.
Yeah, I like that.
There you go.
So the key is to start early.
Start early. Give yourself plenty of time to gather that evidence, prepare everything, address any challenges that might pop up.
Makes sense. So you're not rushing.
No rushing. Take your time.
You've got everything in order.
Be prepared.
Great advice. Okay, so we've covered the parts of the I-140 petition.
We have.
Talked about what happens after it's approved. We've gone over some challenges and some tips.
We did.
What else do people need to know?
Well, one thing to remember is that the EB2-NIW process, it's very individual.
Okay.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
So you really got to tailor your application.
To your specific situation.
To your specific situation, yeah.
To your field.
Exactly.
Okay.
And while it's super important to do your research, use resources like greencardselfpetition.com. You got to remember that this is ultimately about you.
Okay.
And what you bring to the table.
It's your story.
It's your story.
Yeah.
Let your passion come through. Don't be afraid to show the impact you're having.
I love that. So you're not just filling out a form.
Yeah.
You're really telling your story.
You're sharing your passion with the world.
That's great advice. Okay, we've covered a lot today.
We have.
From figuring out if you qualify to that National Interest Waiver to preparing the I-140 petition.
Yeah.
Even what happens after you get approved.
A whole shebang.
Any final thoughts for our listeners?
I think the most important thing to remember is the EB2-NIW. It's for people who are really driven to make a difference.
Okay.
It's for the folks who see their work as more than just a job.
Right. It's their calling.
It's a calling. It's a chance to contribute to something bigger than themselves.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
So it's not just about getting the green card.
Nope.
It's about following a path that lets you make a real impact.
Absolutely. And the process might seem scary at first.
Sure.
But the rewards are huge.
Yeah.
You get the chance to live and work here permanently.
Here in the U.S.
In the U.S.
Yeah.
But you also get to join this amazing community of talented people who are all dedicated to making a positive impact, not just on the U.S., but on the whole world.
That is so powerful. So to everyone listening, if you think your work could benefit the U.S., don't let this process scare you away.
Don't be intimidated.
Do your research. Use the resources out there, especially from greencardselfpetition.com.
They're there to help.
And most importantly, believe in yourself and your ability to make a difference.
That's the key.
We believe in you too.
We do.
And maybe someday we'll be sharing your success story.
That would be amazing.
Right here on The Deep Dive.
We'd love that.
That's it for our deep dive into the EB2-NIW green card self-petitioning process. We hope you learned a lot and feel empowered to start your own journey.
It's a journey worth taking.
The journey might be tough, but the rewards, they're amazing.
Absolutely. Best of luck to everyone out there on your green card journey.
And until next time, happy diving.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks here. We talked about those pitfalls, right? Not really grasping the whole national interest waiver thing or not having enough solid evidence. Where should people really focus to avoid those traps?
Well, let's start with that national interest waiver hurdle. Remember those 3 prongs? Yeah, substantial merit, being well-positioned to advance your field, and why waiving the job offer is a good thing.
Right, you got to approach each one strategically.
Okay, so for that substantial merit and national importance, what are some things people mess up, and how can they make their case stronger?
A big mistake is being too vague. You can't just say, my work is important for healthcare. Got to be specific. How does it benefit the U.S. improving treatments, lowering costs, expanding access to care, that kind of thing?
Okay, so show, don't tell, right?
Exactly. Paint that picture of the impact and connect it right back to how it helps the nation.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what about that second prong, being well-positioned to advance the field?
Think beyond what you've already done. USCIS wants to see what you're capable of in the future.
Right, that potential.
Highlight those ongoing projects, research plans, collaborations, anything showing you're not just good, but you're pushing the boundaries.
You've got that drive.
Exactly. And if you're stuck on how to show that, greencardselfpetition.com's knowledge bot can help brainstorm ways to present your work and what it means for the future.
It's like having a brainstorming buddy. Okay, now that third prong, proving it's better to skip the job offer that one feels the trickiest. Any tips?
This is where you got to flip the thinking. Don't focus on what you need, focus on how the U.S. benefits from waiving that requirement.
Interesting.
Is your work so specialized, so time-sensitive, that waiting for a job offer would actually slow down important progress? Think about that.
Okay, so would it hinder collaborations, research, impact the economy negatively, that kind of thing?
Exactly. Make that argument strong. Don't be shy here. If your work has that level of impact, make it clear why those usual rules don't apply to you.
You're almost like an advocate for the national interest. Now, we keep talking about evidence publications, testimonials, data. How do you make all that stand out to the USCIS officers?
Organization, that's key. It's got to be like a story, a compelling one.
Okay, so your petition letter is the story, and then the evidence backs it up.
You got it. Don't just dump a bunch of stuff on them. Structure it, use headings, maybe even a table of contents if it's a lot.
Makes it easier to digest.
And quality over quantity, always. Choose your strongest evidence, the stuff that really hits those national interest points.
So it's targeted. And if you're not sure how to organize it all, sounds like greencardselfpetition.com's DIY packet has some tips on that.
They do, yeah. Sample layouts, organizational tips, all to help you present that information clearly and persuasively.
It's all great advice. It can feel overwhelming, but knowing there are resources and strategies makes it seem more doable.
It is doable, absolutely. And this is just the start, remember. Once that I-140 is approved, you've got adjustment of status or consular processing. Greencardselfpetition.com can help with those too.
They're there through the whole thing. It really is a journey, this whole EB2-NIW process.
It is, with challenges, but the destination's worth it.
It's about showing your value, contributing your skills to make the U.S. better.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, do your research, use those resources, especially from greencardselfpetition.com, and don't forget how powerful your own passion and drive can be.
We believe in you.
We do, and we can't wait to hear your success stories down the line.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into EB2-NIW Green Card Self-Petitioning. We hope you found it useful and encouraging.
It's a journey worth taking, even if it's tough at times. Those rewards are out there.
Best of luck to everyone on their green card journey.
And until next time, happy diving.